More than 2 months ago, the Ukrainian Armed Forces launched a rapid offensive in the Kursk region, acting proactively to thwart the enemy's plans to capture 2 Ukrainian cities, Sumy and Kharkiv. This came as a surprise and a real test for the Russian army, which had already begun to regroup for further advancement deeper into Ukrainian territory. Putin's troops were forced to radically change their plans in an attempt to hold their positions on their own territory and protect the border area from attacks by Ukrainian forces. The situation in the Kursk region exposed weaknesses in the logistics and supply of Russian troops, in particular due to insufficient coordination and resources. After the Ukrainian offensive, Russian units found themselves in a victim situation, without reinforcements and with limited supplies of ammunition and food. In its confusion, the Russian command was unable to quickly restore its troops, which led to the successful seizure of Russian territory and heavy losses in both manpower and equipment. A large number of Russian soldiers surrendered. The reaction of the Russian leadership also proved to be powerless. The Kremlin began to rapidly transfer resources to the defense of the Kursk region, sending 50,000 troops there, which reduced Russian pressure on other parts of the front. As a result, Ukrainian troops were able to gain a foothold in their positions and continue operations, preventing Russian forces from regaining control. This dynamic has led to a new round of instability in the Russian border areas, underscoring the Putin regime's vulnerability to the effective and unpredictable tactics of the Ukrainian Defense Forces. The Ukrainian military also managed to appropriate some of the trophy equipment of the Russian armed forces, which the occupiers left behind after fleeing the battlefield. For example, a new Russian armored vehicle called Buran. The armored vehicle was captured without any damage, and the fighters of the 61st Separate Mechanized Brigade immediately began to use it against the former owners. The so-called gift from the Russians was found by Ukrainian defenders while clearing a village in the Kursk region. The Buran armored vehicle, which was already equipped with an electronic warfare station, was left behind by the Russians when they were hastily fleeing the Ukrainian army. In general, the Kursk operation came as a surprise to the Russians, so the Ukrainian military found many valuable trophies, mostly artillery, as there were a large number of enemy artillery positions in that region that were firing on Ukrainian territory. They also managed to capture 4 Russian T-90M tanks and the latest T-90M. The T-90M tank is a Russian main battle tank of the T-80 family. It is a modernization of the T-80V tank, which was adopted in 1985 and was designed and manufactured by the Omsk Transport Engineering Plant. The T-80 in the BVM version has only recently been adopted by the Russian occupation army, namely in 2019. According to the manufacturer, the modernized tank has increased firepower, better protection, and improved handling. The modernization includes the installation of a multi-channel Sosna-U gunner's sight, which includes laser, thermal imaging, and rangefinder channels, as well as a missile control channel. The tank is equipped with a 125mm cannon, a weapon stabilizer, and a driver's observation device. The charging mechanism has been modified to accommodate armor-piercing depleted uranium ammunition, called Lead-1 and Lead-2. To protect against enemy fire, the vehicle is equipped with anti-cumulative lattice screens and a modular dynamic protection system. The T-80BVM is equipped with a gas turbine engine developed at the Klimov plant on the basis of aviation technology. The engine has a power output of 1,250 horsepower, a maximum highway speed of up to 80 km per hour, and a maximum range of 500 kilometers. The tank crew consists of 3 people, a mechanic driver, a commander, and a gunner. In August 2020, during a demonstration of its capabilities at the Army 2020 Defense Forum held at the Alabino training ground near Moscow, an embarrassment occurred. Modernized Russian T-80BVM tanks failed to hit the targets. It was planned that the targets would be destroyed by 9M119 guided anti-tank missiles. However, the tank crew failed to cope with this task, resulting in 3 misses out of 3. Only the Russian army is the operator of this tank. It is noted that in 2023, 100 T-90M tanks were transferred to the Russian army and 50 to the Navy Coastal Forces. They are used by the occupiers in the war against Ukraine. As of January 29, 2023, it is known that the enemy has lost 62 T-80 tanks in the BVM version. They were destroyed by the Ukrainian military using anti-tank missile systems, artillery, mortars, and drones. In total, the Russian occupiers have already lost 3,771 T-80 tanks of various modifications. As I mentioned earlier, one of the occupiers' newest tanks, the T-90M, also called Breakthrough by the Russians, fell into the hands of Ukrainian defenders in the Kursk region. This is a Russian main battle tank, a modernization of the T-90A, which has been produced since 2020. Work on the design of the T-90M tank, codenamed Object 188, began in the early 2010s. It was planned to carry out a comprehensive modernization that would cover almost all major tank systems. The T-90M was first presented to the public at the Army 2018 Military Technical Forum. Between 2017 and 2019, the Russian Ministry of War signed 3 contracts for the supply of T-90M tanks, totaling more than 160 vehicles. The first 2 contracts were for the supply of 60 units, including 10 new units and 50 modernized from early T-90s. The third contract is for the modernization of T-90As in service to the T-90M level. The first T-90M tanks were delivered to the Russian Armed Forces in spring 2020. In early 2021, mass production and delivery of these tanks for the Russian Ministry of Defense began. According to Ukrainian intelligence, the production of T-90Ms was slowed by international sanctions after the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The International Institute for Strategic Studies, based in the United Kingdom, estimates that annual production of T-90M tanks could reach up to 90 units in 2024. However, analysis shows that most of these vehicles are likely to be modernized versions of older T-90 models, not new tanks. The tank is equipped with third-generation modular dynamic protection and has an improved fire extinguishing system. The main armament is a 125mm cannon, and the ammunition consists of 40 rounds. Additional weapons include 2 medium and large caliber machine guns. 4 cameras provide an almost all-round view, transmitting images to the commander's and gunner's monitors. The T-90M tank is equipped with a 12-cylinder V-shaped diesel engine with a capacity of 1,130 horsepower. It provides highway travel at a maximum speed of 70 km per hour and a maximum off-road speed of 50. The published photos of the trophy T-90Ms show that the transmission remains unchanged. The tank has a limited reversing speed of less than 5 km per hour. The transmission provides 7 gears forward and 1 reverse. As with conventional T-90s, the low reversing speed does not allow for a quick escape from the danger zone without exposing the vulnerable rear of the tank to attack, which is why the Russian army has suffered serious losses of T-90s in the war against Ukraine. For example, this winter, in the Avdiivka sector, 2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles of the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade engaged a Russian T-90M tank in the area of Stepov. The Bradley crew used a 25mm cannon to disable the tank's systems and damage the turret's rotation mechanism, causing it to spin continuously. Later, Ukrainian defenders shot down the tank using an FPV drone. The Ukrainian offensive in the Kursk region also caused significant losses to Russian military forces. The total losses of the occupier during the operation amounted to 18,000 personnel, and 800 Russian soldiers surrendered. For Ukrainian troops, the Kursk offensive was a very important breakthrough in this war. Ukrainian troops were able to prove that the enemy is very vulnerable on their territory. As noted in the secret documents of the Russian Federation, which were found after the successful breakthrough of Ukrainian troops, they demonstrate that the Russian military was aware of the danger of a possible offensive of Ukrainian troops on the territory of the Kursk region, and moreover, could have foreseen a breakthrough in the area of Sumy, which is now under the operational control of the Ukrainian military command. The question may arise, why did this understanding of the situation not lead to the fact that the Russians fortified themselves in the Sudzha area, increased the number of their troops in the Kursk region, and thus did not create a situation that would have made it impossible for a Ukrainian raid on the sovereign territory of the Russian Federation? And there are several obvious answers. The first is that in an authoritarian state, with no parliamentary or public control over the actions of the authorities, there is an inertia of good news. The head of state lives in his own world, and no one in his inner circle dares to tell him what is really going on, for fear of losing the favorable position and control over financial flows for which he came to power. And this tendency, of course, continues from the first person to those officials who carry out the orders of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of such a country. In the post-Soviet space, this is a trend in general, especially when it comes to people who came to power by accident, as a result of an oligarchic or clan agreement. And such people, as we seem to have forgotten, include Vladimir Putin. This underscores the fact that Putin does not care about his troops at all. He only cares about seizing Ukrainian territory. This attitude is evident in many aspects of his military strategy. He often uses his soldiers as expendable material, sending them to the front without adequate training and support. The lack of adequate logistics and support leads to high casualties among the military, which is left without the necessary resources to conduct effective combat operations. It was this attitude that helped the Ukrainian military successfully seize the Kursk region. They managed to take advantage of the lack of coordination and support from the Russian command. The Ukrainian troops demonstrated high efficiency and effectiveness by launching counterattacks in the most vulnerable places, which allowed them not only to consolidate control over the territory, but also to demonstrate their desire to liberate their own lands. The offensive in the Kursk region not only disrupted the plans of the Russian command, but also became an important factor in the geopolitical situation, showing Ukraine and the world that the aggressor can be defeated. Thank you, friends, for watching to the end. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with the latest news. This video was prepared by Hustler. See you soon.